Welcome back to the deep dive. Today we're tackling condominiums.
Right.
And this is a property type that for millions of people is the single biggest investment they'll ever make.
It absolutely is.
Yet it's probably the one they understand the least, at least in terms of the legal structure.
That's so true.
If you're out there thinking that buying a condo is somehow simpler than buying a house, you really need this deep dive.
It is absolutely crucial for you, the listener, and especially anyone even thinking about buying, to internalize one fact right away.
Right.
A condominium is not defined by its physical structure. It's defined by a legal structure of shared liability.
Shared liability.
Yes. It could be a high-rise, it could be a townhouse, it could even be a detached home.
Right.
Legally, what you're buying into is a complex, self-governing entity. It requires owners to navigate this intricate web of financial obligations that go far, far beyond standard freehold homeownership.
So if you don't know the rules,
you are subjecting yourself to external liabilities that, you might not even realize exist.
Okay, so let's unpack all of this. Let's simplify the dense legal and structural realities of condo life. Our mission today is, I think, pretty crystal clear.
It is.
We're going to define the fundamentals. What exactly do you own? What do you share? And who really holds the power when it comes to governing your property?
Yes.
And because so many of you are looking at new construction, we're going to dive deep into the unique timeline, the specific risks, and, importantly, the consumer protections that are baked into major legislation, like the Condominium Act.
And we'll define the key terminology. We'll describe the 5 main types of ownership structure, which, often surprise people.
I think they will.
And we'll highlight the specialized legal entities that now regulate this massive sector, offering you crucial avenues for dispute resolution. We're really delivering a shortcut to being well-informed on every aspect.
Let's do it. Let's begin with the absolute core blueprint. When you look at a condominium building, the immediate, practical question is, what are my boundaries? What part of this property belongs only to me?
Right.
We need to define that fundamental split that makes this entire structure function, because it's really the definition of ownership that dictates all the financial and maintenance liability.
That's the perfect place to start. I mean, condominium ownership is defined by holding title to your private unit while simultaneously sharing ownership of all the common elements.
Right.
And this unique combination is what gives condo living its broad appeal. It attracts everyone from, young professionals seeking density to active retirees who are looking for a maintenance-free lifestyle.
So let's start with the clearest area first, the unit.
The unit.
This is, I guess, the actual envelope of your private living space. It's the physical box where you live, whether that's an apartment or some kind of row house structure. This is the area where you, the owner, hold sole title.
Sole title, correct. You can sell it, you can mortgage it, and generally you are responsible for the maintenance and repair within its boundaries.
But the boundaries of that unit, they're not just what you can see, right? They're legally defined somewhere.
They're strictly defined in the corporation's legal declaration. That's the foundational document.
The declaration.
It specifies the exact perimeters, which could be, say, the midpoint of the walls, or the surface of the glass in the window panes, or the concrete floor slab.
And that precision is vital.
Oh, absolutely vital. Because the instant a repair crosses that legal boundary, the financial responsibility shifts completely.
So if the unit is mine, what about everything else? The hallways, the lobby?
Everything else. Everything on the property that isn't explicitly defined as a unit falls into what we call the common elements.
Okay.
And we're talking about the elevators, the structural hallways, the gardens, the main lobbies, the roofs, the mechanical systems.
The pool, the party room.
All of it. The pools, the party rooms, you don't hold sole title to any of these. Ownership is shared jointly with every other owner in the building.
And legally, there's a specific term for that, right?
There is. It's legally defined as tenants in common with an undivided interest.
That sounds incredibly formal. What does tenants in common with an undivided interest actually mean in plain English for a unit owner?
It means you own a proportionate slice of every single common element, but you can't physically delineate it. You can't, go down to the shared gym and say, that treadmill is mine because I own 0.7% of the common elements.
Right.
You own 0.7% of the cost and liability that's associated with maintaining that entire gym.
So if the roof leaks?
If the roof leaks, everybody pays their proportionate share, which is based on the percentage assigned to their unit in that declaration.
Now, this is where it gets really interesting for me. The exclusive use common elements. Or EUCEs.
The gray areas.
These are the gray areas, exactly. This is property owned by the corporation, but it's physically attached to or designated for the sole use of just one unit.
Balconies, patios, private rooftop terraces, those are the classic examples.
And this is where the financial buck stops, right? And it's usually not where owners think it does.
It's a huge point of confusion. The corporation holds the ownership of the EUCE. The adjacent unit owner simply has the exclusive right to use it.
Okay, so that creates a critical distinction for financial responsibility.
A massive one. While the corporation handles the major structural common element costs, like, say, replacing the entire main roof structure,
Right.
the unit owner with that exclusive use is almost always made responsible for the ongoing maintenance, the non-structural repairs, and any improvements to that specific area.
Like what?
Like cleaning, painting the railings, or repairing the surface tiles on a private terrace. That's on you.
So if I want to install expensive patio tiles or maybe an enclosure on my ECE balcony, I don't just get to do it, even though it's mine to use,
No.
and I'm the one who has to pay for it if it breaks.
Absolutely. You usually need board approval first. Then you have to enter into a formal agreement with the corporation, which often gets registered on the title of your unit.
And that agreement holds me, the owner, financially responsible for that alteration.
For everything. For insurance, for restoration costs, if damage occurs, even though you don't legally own the physical space.
And the whole point of that is to protect the other owners.
Precisely. The intent is to insulate the Common Elements Fund from costs that stem from just one owner's exclusive customization.
Let's shift to something that is a major deal breaker for a lot of buyers. Parking and storage lockers.
Oh, yes.
I just assume my spot is mine, but you mentioned there are 4 distinct legal phases of parking and storage ownership.
4, yes.
So which one gives an owner the most control, and why is that due diligence so incredibly crucial here?
It's crucial because the legal designation determines liquidity. I mean, can you sell this space? And certainty, can the corporation just reassign it?
You have to confirm this before you buy.
You absolutely must confirm the details of the parking and storage before you sign on the dotted line.
Okay, so let's detail these 4 types. Let's start with the one that provides the maximum control for the unit owner.
That would be freehold. This is the strongest ownership position you can have.
Freehold.
The owner holds actual title to the space. It's either part of the unit's legal description or it has a separate legal title altogether.
And if it has a separate title, that means?
It means you have the flexibility to sell it to any other owner within the complex at market value, completely independent of your unit sale.
Assuming the declaration doesn't prohibit it.
Right. But it's pure ownership. It's an asset.
Okay, so that's the best case. The other 3 are structures where the corporation actually retains ownership of the land.
Correct. So number 2 is leasehold.
Leasehold.
Here, the condominium corporation owns the parking or storage spaces and it leases them to the unit owner, usually for a very long term.
So you have a right to use it?
You have a guaranteed right to use it based on that lease agreement. It's generally perpetual as long as you own the unit, but you don't own the underlying asset, and the corporation collects some form of rent for it.
Okay. And the third type sounds familiar. It's that exclusive use common element model again.
Exactly. Number 3 is exclusive use common element, or EUCE. This is probably the most common model in new high-rise construction.
Right.
The corporation owns the space, but the unit owner has a permanent exclusive right to use a specific defined spot as it's laid out in the declaration.
And because that right is tied to my unit?
The corporation can't arbitrarily revoke that right. They can't just take it away.
But I'm still governed by their rule.
Oh, absolutely. The use is still governed by the corporation's rules. You can't use it for, say, long-term storage of old furniture.
Only for parking a car.
Only for parking vehicles that adhere to the rules, for example. No commercial trucks, that sort of thing.
And finally, the type that carries the most uncertainty for a unit owner. The riskiest one.
That would be number 4, allocated or assigned.
Allocated or assigned.
This is the risky designation, you're right. The condominium corporation owns all the spaces, and it assigns them to unit owners on a discretionary basis.
I see. So it's not tied to my unit in the declaration.
Not in the same permanent way. This is common in the very early stages of a development. And the risk is that the developer or the subsequent elected board typically retains the right to reassign spots.
Why would they do that?
Well, if, for example, they need to reconfigure traffic flow in the garage or maybe change the use of a portion of it.
So a buyer might be promised a coveted spot right near the elevator.
And then find out later that the declaration actually grants the corporation the power to move it to the other end of the garage. You have to read that detail very carefully in the disclosure statement.
It's so clear that the word condominium is just.
Yeah.
It's so broad. It's a legal structure, not a building type.
That's the key takeaway.
So let's map out the 5 major legal variations of that structure, because they dramatically alter what an owner buys, what they own, and what they're liable for.
That's right. The Condominium Act recognizes these 5 models, and they all fall under that category of shared cost liability, but with very, very different applications, especially when it comes to the land itself.
Okay, so the baseline is the freehold standard condominium. This is the simplest and, I assume, the most common residential type.
It is. The standard condominium is what you picture, the common high-rise tower or a mid-rise complex.
Right.
The structure is legally divided into private units and shared common elements. The owner owns their specific unit and an inseparable proportionate interest in those common elements.
And the cost is based on size.
Usually. The calculation of the common expense contribution is typically based on the unit's square footage, though the declaration can specify other metrics.
Now, the next model is structurally confusing. It almost seems to contradict the very definition of a condo. It's the freehold common element condominium, or CEC.
This is a critical legal tool, and yeah, it is a bit confusing at first. A common element condominium contains no residential units at all. None. It consists solely of common elements, things like shared roads, private parkland, recreational facilities, or infrastructure for a large community.
So where is it used?
It's often used for, say, high-end suburban developments where the houses themselves are individually owned freehold homes.
Okay, so the owner owns their house and the land it sits on outright. That's their parcel of tied land, or POTL.
Correct.
But they're forced to be members of this CEC.
Exactly. Owners own their house and land the POTL separately, but they are mandatory and joint owners and funders of the Common Element Corporation.
Give me an example.
Think of a gated suburban community with private roads, a communal pool, and a front entrance gate.
Okay.
You own your house, but you jointly own the roads and the pool. That's the CEC.
And the key legal feature is that you can't sell the house separately from your share in the CEC.
That's the tied part of parcel of tied land. The POTL cannot be sold separately from its interest in the CEC. This is the mechanism that ensures every single homeowner contributes to the mandatory expense of maintaining that shared infrastructure.
So the pool doesn't fall into disrepair when one owner decides they don't want to pay the fees.
Precisely. It guarantees funding.
The next model, the freehold vacant land condominium, seems to be purely focused on the development timeline. It allows registration before the homes are even built.
It does. It allows the corporation to be registered after the developer installs the necessary infrastructure, like utilities and internal roads, but before any houses are actually constructed.
So what's sold?
The developer registers the corporation and sells the land units to buyers. Title transfers with a commitment that a structure will be built later, often by the buyer or a specific builder.
And the value of this is the control it gives over the future look and feel of the neighborhood.
Exactly. The declaration contains what are called restrictive covenants on future construction.
What does that mean?
It means it governs things like building size, height, design standards, even completion dates. This ensures a consistent, aesthetically pleasing neighborhood from the very start, which is often crucial for high-value developments.
And your share of costs is based on the land, not a building.
Right. The owner's proportionate share of costs is based on the size of their land unit.
Okay, and finally, the model that gives the builder ongoing flexibility. The freehold phased condominium.
Phased condominiums grant builders the legal right to add new units or new common elements in successive stages, all under a single condominium corporation.
So they don't have to create a new corporation for each new tower in a huge development.
Correct. They just register an amendment to the original declaration for each new phase. It avoids the expense and complexity of creating multiple separate corporations and boards of directors.
It allows for these massive multi-year developments.
It does, but early buyers must be prepared for the reality of living through subsequent development phases.
You mean living on a construction site?
Sometimes for years, with all the noise, dust, and construction traffic that entails.
Okay. So while all those freehold variations involve some element of land ownership, the leasehold condominium is a fundamentally different transaction. You call it the land rent model.
It is a distinct category. The core difference is that the developer does not own the land. The building is constructed on land leased from a third party, with a ground lease term that can range from 40 to 99 years.
So what is the buyer actually purchasing?
The buyer purchases a leasehold interest in the units and the common elements. They do not own the land itself.
So unit owners are essentially tenants of the land, and that reality is reflected in their mandatory monthly payments.
Yes. The unit owner's common expense contribution includes a mandatory payment that goes toward the rent paid to the landowner.
Why would someone choose this?
This structure is appealing because it removes the high upfront cost of purchasing the underlying land, which makes the units more affordable initially. It's often marketed to buyers on fixed incomes, like retirees.
But the major risk here is the ticking clock. What happens when that ground lease expires 70 years from now?
Well, the Condominium Act makes the consequence explicit. The right to occupy the unit automatically terminates when the ground lease expires. And while a 99-year term feels like a lifetime away, this fundamentally changes the long-term equity and inheritance implications compared to freehold ownership.
You can still sell it during that time, though.
Oh, yes. The unit owner retains the right to sell, transfer, and mortgage the leasehold interest during the term, but that right is inherently finite.
Let's move to the practical reality of living in a condo. There is such a clear trade-off here.
There is.
Condos promise ultimate convenience, but they demand strict adherence to rules, and they mandate shared financial liability. Let's balance that appeal with the non-negotiable obligations that so often lead to conflict.
Buyers really need to look past the beautiful renderings of the party room and understand the legal constraints. The upsides are enormous, especially around maintenance and security, but the limitations on individual control and the mandatory financial commitments.
That's where the trouble starts.
That's often the source of buyer's remorse if the paperwork isn't fully digested.
So let's start with the appeal. The primary selling point is the promise of maintenance-free living. If you own a house, the minute the furnace breaks or the roof needs replacing, the cost and the labor are 100% yours.
And in a condo, the corporation handles all responsibility for the common elements: roofs, structural repairs, snow removal, major equipment replacement.
Which saves owners a lot of time and effort.
It does.
Yeah.
And because the costs are shared, the property is often maintained to a superior standard because professional management is overseeing contracted services.
And that convenience extends into financial planning thanks to the mandatory reserve fund.
Every corporation is legally required to maintain this fund. You should think of it as a mandatory communal savings account.
Okay.
It's there to cover major repairs or replacements of common elements that occur over time. A specialist has to prepare a reserve fund study every 3 years to determine the appropriate funding level.
So a portion of my monthly fees goes directly into that fund.
A portion is specifically earmarked for this, yes. And it's designed to smooth out those big-ticket, large-scale expenses.
This shared funding model also enables enhanced security features that would be, prohibitively expensive for a single-family home.
Exactly. Shared costs allow for superior security measures. We're talking 24-hour front desk security, key fob access, sophisticated monitoring cameras, alarms.
You get an institutional level of security for a fraction of the cost.
You do. And developers also leverage this appeal by targeting niche markets with customized amenities.
What do you mean by that?
Well, retirees may get a focus on quiet libraries and walking paths, while urban dwellers get high-tech gyms and media rooms. The amenities are specifically chosen to attract and retain the desired demographic.
Okay, now for the flip side, the absolute loss of individual financial freedom and control.
Yes.
The first and most critical is the payment of mandatory fees.
Yeah.
Owners must pay their proportion of common expense fees as specified in the declaration.
And this obligation is non-negotiable under the Condominium Act.
So if the manager is incompetent, or if I refuse to use the pool because it's always dirty, or even if I have a pending complaint against the corporation, I still have to pay 100%.
You still have to pay 100%. The law prevents you from offsetting, negotiating, or abandoning your fees.
And if you default?
If you default, the corporation has powerful recourse: suspension of your voting rights, accruing additional interest and legal costs, and most severely, the ability to register a lien against the unit.
A lien?
And that lien gives the corporation priority over almost all other registered charges. It can lead to a forced sale of your unit to recover the unpaid amounts. It is swift, powerful enforcement.
Let's be blunt about the worst-case scenario. When the reserve fund runs dry, or maybe was never properly funded in the first place, the individual owner is on the hook.
Completely.
This is the risk of personal liability and special assessments. How quickly can a special assessment hit? And what's the worst financial shock you've seen a buyer get stuck with?
They can hit very, very quickly. If a major unexpected expense occurs, like a sudden structural failure, or the roof needs replacement 5 years earlier than predicted, and the reserve fund is insufficient.
The board acts.
The board determines the special assessment amount, and owners are personally liable to pay their share, usually within 30 or 60 days.
Wow.
I have seen owners hit with assessments equivalent to 6 months of their common fees, sometimes higher, with very little warning.
And this is why reviewing the reserve fund study is so critical.
Absolutely critical. It tells you if the corporation is financially healthy or if it's sitting on a ticking time bomb.
Beyond the money, condo ownership inherently means surrendering control. You give up governance limits to the elected board of directors.
Yes, you do.
They make the crucial decisions about budgets, scheduled repairs, and rules.
That's the core trade-off. You give up the hassle of management, but you also give up the ability to unilaterally object to a $50,000 lobby renovation you don't like.
So what's your recourse?
It's political. You have to mobilize 15% of the owners to requisition a special meeting to vote on the issue, or you attempt to remove board members at the next annual meeting. You have to rely on the diligence and competence of your elected neighbors.
Finally, we have to mention the impact of rules and bylaws. These are the day-to-day restrictions that govern behavior and can drastically affect a buyer's enjoyment of the property.
They can.
I heard of a condo that tried to ban specific breeds of dogs entirely.
Rules can indeed be incredibly specific and binding. They govern everything from regulating the size and number of pets to restricting short-term rentals like Airbnb, controlling noise levels, defining how visitors use common elements, and regulating odors and smoke.
It can get really granular.
I once dealt with a condo where the rules required permission just to change a light fixture if it involved turning off the main breaker. It underscores how deeply these documents can regulate your life.
So owners have to understand these rules before they purchase.
They're legally binding. You must.
And even inside your own unit, your freedom is limited when it comes to alterations.
Yes. The limits to alterations are strict, mainly to protect the common elements.
Like changing the flooring.
Right. If you replace carpet with laminate flooring, the corporation may mandate a specific acoustic barrier underneath to mitigate noise transmission to the units below you.
And what about that patio enclosure?
If you want to enclose an exclusive use patio, you must obtain board approval and enter into an agreement that holds you liable for the cost, insurance, and future restoration of that alteration. The corporation always acts to protect the shared assets.
We've defined the physical layout and the financial constraints. Now let's talk about the specific legal bureaucracy that dictates your life.
Right.
And if you're not into municipal politics, this is the section to listen to closely, because these regulatory bodies are tasked with consumer protection.
The legal foundation is what separates a functioning condo from a constant war zone. These laws mandate transparency, and crucially, they create specialized, accessible avenues for dispute resolution that are outside of costly, lengthy court proceedings.
The bedrock of all this is the Condominium Act, 1998, and its amendments. This is the fundamental law regulating everything.
It is, but the game changed massively with the Protecting Condominium Owners Act 2015 amendments.
How so?
Well, after years of complaints about opaque governance and poor management, these reforms established 3 specialized regulatory authorities, ensuring better oversight and resources for owners.
Okay, let's start with the regulator focus on education and transparency, the Condominium Authority of Ontario, or CAO.
The CAO's mandate is broad. It's consumer protection supporting healthy condo communities, public education. It maintains a public registry of all corporations, provides resources for owners.
And most importantly,
it enforces mandatory online training for board directors.
so directors have to be trained.
They must complete this training within 6 months of being appointed to ensure they are competent in finance, governance, and compliance. This addresses the common issue of, inexperienced volunteers making multi-million-dollar decisions.
And if an owner has a legitimate dispute, they don't automatically have to spend thousands on lawyers anymore. They now have access to the Condominium Authority Tribunal, or CAT.
The CAT is an incredibly important development. It's an online dispute resolution service administered by the CAO, and it's designed to resolve disputes faster, cheaper, and more effectively than traditional litigation.
What's its scope? What can it rule on?
Its scope is currently focused on access to records, which is a huge source of conflict, as well as rules and bylaws concerning pets, parking, vehicles, and nuisance issues.
Like noise and smells.
Chronic noise, odors, light, and vibration, yes.
Huh.
The C8 process involves mandatory mediation and negotiation, and if needed, it provides binding decisions that are enforceable as court orders.
Finally, managing multi-million-dollar assets requires professional oversight of the management industry itself. That led to the Condominium Management Regulatory Authority of Ontario, the CMRAO.
The CMRAO was established by the Condominium Management Services Act 2015 to standardize the profession. It implements a compulsory licensing system for individual managers and management firms. It sets education standards, and it enforces a strict code of ethics.
This ensures a level of professional competence.
It does. And licensed professionals are also required to carry specific insurance, including errors and omissions and fidelity insurance, to protect the corporation from financial loss arising from, say, poor advice or dishonesty.
So when does a corporation actually become a legal entity? It's not when the building opens, but when two specific documents are filed by the builder.
That's right. The corporation is legally created when the declarant, the builder, files the declaration and the description at the land registry office. This process is called registration.
And upon filing.
A corporation without share capital is automatically formed, and the unit owners become its members, and the directors become subject to the act.
Let's look closer at the declaration. You called it the constitution of the building.
It is. The declaration is the highest-ranking governing document. It establishes the proportionate share of common elements for each unit, the owner's mandatory contribution to common expenses. It defines the unit boundaries, identifies exclusive use, common elements.
And critically,
No bylaw or rule can contradict the declaration. It defines the entire structure of ownership and liability.
and the description provides the architectural blueprints for the whole thing.
Exactly. The description includes all the physical plans and surveys. Architectural, structural, engineering, mechanical, and electrical drawings. It sets out the exact shape, dimensions, boundaries, and location of every single unit.
It's the technical reference.
It's what a lawyer or an engineer would use to determine if a structural issue falls within the common elements or inside your unit boundaries.
Once registered, the corporation is run by the board of directors, elected by the owners, and that starts at the turnover meeting.
The turnover meeting is the key point where control shifts from the builder-appointed board to a board elected by the actual owners.
When does it have to be called?
It must be called once the declarant no longer owns a majority of the units. And these new directors are fiduciaries. They are responsible for ensuring compliance with the Act, managing finances, ensuring the reserve fund study is updated, and maintaining all the common elements.
And overseeing the day-to-day running is the manager's role.
The license manager is the operational backbone. They handle day-to-day tasks, collecting fees, ensuring maintenance is performed, handling records, preparing the crucial status certificates.
What's a status certificate?
It's a document that details the corporation's financial health and legal standing. It's essential for any resale.
So the manager is the link between everyone.
They are the essential link between the elected board, the owners, and the complex legal requirements of the Act.
Okay, we've covered the structure and the law for existing buildings. Now we have to turn our attention to the specific challenges faced by a buyer who commits to a unit that hasn't even been built yet.
The pre-construction purchase?
Yes, and this process is complex. It often involves committing hundreds of thousands of dollars sight unseen.
Buying pre-construction means accepting a high degree of uncertainty about timelines, about final costs, and about the finished product. And the financial obligations begin long before you actually receive title to the property.
So the first major hurdle is this concept of interim occupancy.
Yes.
This is the critical period where you move in, but you don't yet own the unit because the building is not yet registered as a legal condominium corporation.
Interim occupancy begins when the unit is substantially completed and the buyer takes physical possession, and it only ends when the entire condominium corporation is officially registered, allowing title to transfer.
And this period can last how long?
It can last for several months or sometimes over a year, especially in large, complex towers.
And during this time, the buyer pays occupancy fees. This is a huge source of confusion for new buyers because they think they're paying a mortgage, but they're not.
They are not. They are paying rent, not mortgage principal.
That's the essential clarification.
These payments are effectively rent paid to the builder. They do not go toward paying down your principal mortgage.
So what am I paying for?
You're paying the estimated interest that the builder is incurring on their construction loan based on your unit's unpaid purchase price, plus your estimated common expense contribution and an estimate of your municipal taxes.
And only after registration do I get my mortgage.
Once registration occurs and title is transferred, you finally pay the balance, register your mortgage, and begin actual mortgage payments.
So what are the primary risks of delays associated with this lengthy timeline?
Well, first, there's a physical risk. Early occupants are often living in a partial construction zone.
Right. Unfinished hallways, dust.
Unfinished common elements, noise, dust, non-operable amenities. It's very common.
And the financial risk.
Construction delays expose the buyer to expiring mortgage commitments. If registration is significantly delayed, the buyer may be forced to secure permanent financing at a much higher interest rate, making the unit more expensive than they planned.
And finally, the risk that it just here doesn't look like the pictures.
The risk of discrepancy between the pre-construction plans and the final product, yes. Builders retain flexibility to make minor changes.
Fortunately, buyers of new units have specific legislative protections. The builder has mandatory disclosure obligations.
They do. The builder must provide a detailed disclosure statement. This contains the governing documents, the proposed first-year budget, and the features and amenities of the project.
And this document, along with the purchase agreement and the condo buyer's guide, triggers the 10-day cooling-off period.
Right.
This cooling-off period is a massive consumer advantage, unique to new condo purchases. It provides crucial time for due diligence.
Absolutely. The buyer can rescind the purchase agreement for any reason within 10 days of receiving all three of those required documents.
So this is your window to get a lawyer to look at everything.
It allows buyers time to have a lawyer who specializes in pre-construction review, the dense, complex documents for any onerous clauses or unexpected costs.
And what if something changes later?
If there is a material change to the disclosure statement later on, like a major amenity being canceled, the buyer often gets an additional opportunity to rescind the contract.
Beyond cancellation rights, buyers are protected by the Provincial Warranty Program, administered by Hartarian. So what are the layers of protection there?
The warranty coverage starts the day the buyer takes possession. It provides deposit protection up to $20,000 if the builder defaults.
Okay. And for defects?
For defects, there's a layered system. A 1-year warranty on defects in work and materials, a 2-year warranty covering water penetration and defects in electrical, plumbing, heating systems, and the crucial 7-year warranty against major structural defects.
And you have to do an inspection before you move in.
The buyer must complete a pre-delivery inspection, or PDI, with the builder to list any defects before they take occupancy.
How does the warranty extend to the common property that I share liability for?
Well, common element coverage applies, but it only starts at the time of legal registration of the corporation.
Right.
The coverage cap for common elements varies, but for purchase agreements signed recently, the maximum is $100,000 multiplied by the number of units, up to $3.5 million.
And does this apply to all types of condos?
It's important to clarify that this coverage applies to standard and phased condominiums, but common element condominiums and vacant land condominiums do not have common element warranty coverage.
And for condominium conversion projects, when an old office building becomes a residential tower, what parts are covered?
This is a crucial distinction that often confuses buyers. The original elements of the conversion, like the existing foundation or facade.
The old parts.
The old parts are not covered by the 1-year workmanship warranty because those materials are old.
But the big stuff is.
The 7-year structural defect warranty does apply to those original elements, and all the new components, like plumbing, wiring, and finishing, are covered by the full 1, 2, and 7-year warranties.
Finally, there's protection for persistent delays. If the builder keeps pushing the timeline, the buyer has recourse.
Yes. The builder has to provide a firm occupancy date. If occupancy is delayed past the outside occupancy date, that's the latest date the builder can legally push the closing.
Right.
The buyer has the right to terminate the APS, receive all their money back with interest, and receive delayed occupancy compensation, which covers living expenses up to a maximum of $7,500.
A common strategy, especially among investors in hot markets, is the assignment agreement.
Yeah.
This is essentially selling the contract before the unit is even registered.
Right. An assignment transfers the original buyers, the assigner's rights and responsibilities in the pre-construction purchase agreement to a new buyer, the assignee, before the transfer of title.
So the assigner is selling their right to acquire the property later for a profit.
Essentially, yes. And that profit is often paid at the time of the assignment.
What's the main legal hurdle here? Builder contracts usually don't make this easy, do they?
They absolutely do not. Restrictions. Builder contracts almost always explicitly prohibit assignment without the builder's prior written consent.
And they charge for it.
They often impose substantial administrative fees and strict advertising restrictions to control speculation. If the builder's requirements are ignored, for instance, by publicly listing the assignment on an unauthorized platform,
The builder can cancel the whole deal.
the builder has the right to terminate the agreement of purchase and sale entirely.
And the financial and tax risks associated with assignments are incredibly complex, particularly around the HST rebate.
This is the highest risk area. If the assignee fails to close, the original buyer, the assigner, may still be liable to the builder.
Oh, wow.
And more importantly, the assigner might be required to repay the GST-HT new housing rebate if the CRA determines the property was purchased purely for speculation rather than for the assigner's primary residence.
And there's capital gains tax.
The assigner may face a significant capital gains tax bill on the profit from the assignment, and both parties face complex provincial land transfer tax implications.
So you need an expert.
Expert guidance from a tax professional is non-negotiable for an assignment transaction.
That seems like an incredibly high-stakes, document-heavy transaction, just fraught with financial exposure and tax liability.
It is.
Circles right back to the central theme here. In condo ownership, the power truly is in the paperwork.
We covered a tremendous amount of ground today, and while the complexities are vast, if you remember 3 vital concepts from this deep dive into residential condominiums, they will form the bedrock of successful condo ownership and financial stability.
First, remember the fundamental structure, the unit versus the common elements.
Right.
You hold sole title to your unit, but you share ownership, liability, and the cost of maintenance for every common element. The elevators, the roof, the grounds.
And
Critically, your private enjoyment spaces, like balconies, are often exclusive use common elements, meaning the corporation owns them, but you are responsible for their maintenance and repairs.
Second, understand the binding nature of the condominium fees and the reserve fund. Those monthly contributions are mandatory and non-negotiable.
And the reserve fund is the corporation's vital financial buffer against catastrophic common element repairs.
And if that fund is deficient, you, the owner, are personally liable for the cost via a special assessment. Due diligence must always include a review of the reserve fund study.
And third, if you buy new construction, master the distinction between interim occupancy and ownership.
Yes.
You pay occupancy fees, essentially the builder's interest and estimated operating costs, while the builder finalizes registration. That's a time when you are highly exposed to delays and must be vigilant in exercising your 10-day cooling-off period rights and confirming your warranty protection against defects.
We've established that living in a condominium is like living in a miniature self-governed city. The systems, the laws, the regulators, and the documentation. They all exist to protect you as a consumer and ensure these massive assets are maintained.
But those systems only work if you, the owner, are actively informed.
Informed about the rules, the financial health of the corporation, and the rights you gain and give up when you sign the declaration.
So what does this all mean for you? The biggest difference between a happy condo owner and a frustrated one isn't the proximity of the gym or the quality of the finishings.
No.
It's whether they understand that they purchased a financial commitment and a binding set of rules. The amenities are a perk. The bylaws are a contract.
That's it, exactly.
If you didn't read them before you moved in, read them tonight. That's something to chew on until our next deep dive.